What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Open Table Sports Podcast, episode 14. I'm Matt. I'm with Dom and Mark again. A lot of NFL to go over today. As the past couple weeks, we haven't really had that much NHL or any of that, but we do have some baseball news. As we know, opening day was yesterday. Oh, we already got someone commenting on the YouTube. There we go. Not even 20 seconds, and we got a sup. What's up, dog? Obviously, if you're listening to the audio, you can't see us right now, but we do go live on YouTube at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time. So we'd like to thank University of Bridgeport, because that's where our studio is and where we go to school. And we'd like to thank Booze Auction as well. We're going to get into the Rob Gronkowski retirement from the Patriots in the NFL. Kind of shocking, not really. We know he was kind of mulling retirement, thinking of whether he was going to stay or walk or whatever it may be. Were you surprised about it, Dom?
I mean, you look at it, I think it was kind of the only shocker to it was how it was done, and it just kind of came out of nowhere. I mean, no one was really talking about it, and then he just kind of posted on Instagram that he was retiring. So that was the only surprising factor. I figured he was going to retire the whole time. I mean, there's no reason to keep playing.
Yeah, because I heard a few weeks ago that he was leaning towards retirement, and all these people. Yeah, we're still looking to help. Obviously, for listening to audio right now, you can't see this, but we love interactions on our YouTube. He said, "Do you guys need help with OTS? If you want to help, just DM us on the Twitter. We'll answer it after we're done with the podcast. We could probably just answer it now, but if you want to talk or whatever, just DM Open Table Sports on Twitter." I heard he was leaning towards retirement, but I don't know. Maybe the tip of the scale might have been Robert Kraft. Who knows? Yeah. But I just heard he was, leaning towards retirement, but now it becomes official. It was just kind of weird that it just was like that. I thought it would come later into the offseason. I didn't think it would come before the draft. I would think it might have came after. Maybe the Patriots just, put a gun to his head and said, hey, it's before the draft. We want to know what we're going to do for the tight end position, that type of thing. That's why it probably came out of nowhere. But, what do you think about this one, Mark, about his retirement?
I mean, I'm not really shocked either. As good as he's been, he's had his struggles staying healthy. So, I mean, it gets to a point where that takes a toll on your body, and you just I guess you just thought it was time, I mean, he's been one of the most dominant tight ends in football. He's got three Super Bowl rings. I mean, there's not really much else that he has to do.
I mean, his injury history doesn't help him.
Yeah, in the back and everything like that. But I think this is a big hit to the Patriots. Yeah, he played like 9 seasons, but when you think about it, of all the injuries he had in the games he missed, he really only played like 5 seasons.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but he did a lot in the time he played. Obviously, a lot of injuries, but he did have a lot of success. I think this is probably one of the craziest stories of so many injuries, but so much success at the same time. Because if you look at other players who had tons of injuries, they didn't have the same success as Gronkowski. And he's missed full seasons. He's missed, a majority of seasons before. He's had multiple surgeries, probably at least 5, I would have to say, between, his elbow, his back. I'm sure he's had knee problems, but he's definitely had tons of surgeries. And, I'm sure he's had concussions before and stuff like that, knowing how stupid he is. I don't know. It's pretty interesting to see, like, what's going to happen from here. I know the Patriots, they have a visit lined up with Jay Sternberger from Texas A&M. We'll see what happens there. Will they take him with a 32nd overall pick? I don't think he's worth it. But, hey, it's the Patriots. They could turn, whoever into a Hall of Fame or whatever it may be. I don't know how they do it, but, yeah, I know Belichick's a great coach, but does he really do it on his own? Who knows? If he's the only one doing this, all these players, I think that's crazy. But I'm sure he does have help from a lot of people. But, it's pretty interesting to see. Definitely a huge hit on Brady as well, let alone the franchise. Also, the fan base, the amount of jerseys he sold. I mean,
probably got to be second to Brady. I mean,
that's crazy.
Easily.
I mean, he's got a lot of jerseys out there. I know it's interesting. Does he come back? Most likely. Even his agent said he wouldn't be shocked if he came back to play a couple games even next year. So, I mean, I think this is just, a step away for right now, but I think he does come back to play with the Patriots down the stretch of next season. Maybe, Brady gives him a call. Maybe they're struggling a little bit, whatever. I wouldn't be shocked if he came back. Do you guys think he could maybe end up with another team?
I don't think so, no. No, I don't think he'd go to another team. I think one thing we got to look out for, do you think, Matt, that he has a shot at joining the WWE, as many reports have been out there?
I know Bray Wyatt said he already wants to fight Gronk. I know Stephanie McMahon said the door was open. He worked a charity event for WWE last week. WrestleMania is coming up a little bit. We're going to be having an updated card a little bit later in the podcast. But I think he does make his way. He already made an appearance at WrestleMania 33 in Orlando in 2017. So it's pretty interesting to see what's going to happen with him. Does he go to WWE? Does he take a full career in acting? Does he come back to the NFL? Does he join another team? Does he stay with the Patriots? Does he take on a coaching role? Maybe that could be a viable option for him. But I think right now, I think he does go to the WWE. He might tag with Mojo Rawley, his best friend who he played football with, who he grew up with, worked out, et cetera, all that type of stuff. But I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with him. I don't think he's going to I think it's going to be, a lot of things that are going to swirl around with him in terms of rumors and what he's going to do. He's going to party a lot as well. He's going to do a lot of that. But I think right now the number one option for him is definitely the WWE. Given his injury history, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. WWE is not very happy when people have injuries. Excuse you. I think WWE is a good option for him right now. I think it'll be kind of weird to see Rod. He's one of the best tight ends of all time. And I think it's just interesting to see, if he does go full-time into actual wrestling, I think that's going to be kind of weird because when have you seen, like a top player at their position go to, WWE or, UFC or something like that and really kill it? I mean, yeah, you could look at Greg Hardy, but he's not a top 5 defensive end of all time. But so he's, top 5, probably top 3 in his position and at tight end in the history of the NFL. And he's going to go to WWE. I think that'll be really interesting to see. Another player that retired is Jordy Nelson. He retired from the NFL. I wouldn't even consider him playing for the Raiders. He didn't do anything for them, and he played one season. So I wouldn't even – yeah, he was on the team technically, but I would barely consider him a Raider in his career. So I would just call him a Packer for life. I don't know. Do you guys think he'll make Hall of Fame? I mean, because I was looking at his stats, and I know a lot of people have been tweeting out that he doesn't look like he's – they say that because of his name with, tied with Aaron Rodgers, he will be. But they said that since he didn't do good without Rodgers, they said that he isn't a likely Hall of Famer because he didn't really make a name for himself outside of Aaron Rodgers and outside the Packers because he had such a shitty tenure with the Raiders that I saw a bunch of people tweet it. And the more tweets I was looking at, I kind of agreed with them because, if you look at his stats, they're not, insanely good. They're kind of – he was good when he was with Aaron Rodgers. Even when Aaron Rodgers was injured and Jordy Nelson was still there, Jordy Nelson didn't do that much. So I think his success came from Rodgers. I don't think he was I also want to see what happens with Antonio Brown. You can kind of say the same thing as that. Look at Odell. He had lackluster Eli, who's not what he used to be, and he was still putting up numbers. And I don't know. I can compare. I want to see what, AB will do with the Raiders. I can compare that to Jordy Nelson.
I mean, Jordy Nelson's a good receiver. I think he's in that, Julian Edelman category. I think people are jumping the gun with Julian Edelman. I've said this before. Julian Edelman, people were talking about, is he a Hall of Famer now after the last Super Bowl? And people were jumping the gun on it. I think Nelson only playing he played 9 with the Packers.
Not with
the Packers, yeah. And I think it's just not enough. I think he's he's on the fringe. He obviously won't be in the conversation for first time eligible, but maybe, few years down after he's eligible, maybe he slips in. I wouldn't be upset if he gets in, but I wouldn't be too upset if he doesn't get in. I think he's He could go either way.
Yeah. He's definitely one of those fringe guys that he's not a surefire thing to make it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, he was at times maybe like a top 15 receiver in the league. But I mean, that's not necessarily enough to get you into the Hall of Fame.
Even if you look at his stats, he's had 4 years over 1,000 yards, 1,300, 1,500, 1,300, 1,300. Not a lot of touchdowns though. He had 15, 13, and 14. Those are his highest touchdown years.
He also missed the season because he tore his ACL.
Yeah, so he missed some time as well. But I mean, 4 years over 1,000 yards, and I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. Definitely something to look at. I mean, he's had, a lot, 15 games, 16, 16, 12, 16, 16, 13, 16. So his, least games played in a season is 12. That's good for a wide receiver, when they're always dealing with ankle and knee, those sprained ankles and toe injuries.
What year was it he missed? Was it 15?
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
15 he missed the whole year because he tore his ACL.
Yeah, tore it in a preseason or training camp.
Something around there that kept him out the whole season. Mm-hmm. I mean, other than that, he wasn't like an injury-prone receiver.
Yeah, no.
But that was the killer to the Packers season. Mm-hmm. So, I mean,
wasn't that right after he had a big year, or was it the following year that he had a big year?
I think it was 2014 he had, like, that really big year. Mm-hmm. I think he had over, 90 catches.
Yeah, he had 98 catches, 1,500 yards, 13 touchdowns. But then in 2016, 97, 1,300, and 14 touchdowns.
Yeah, so he kind of just picked up right where he left off.
Yeah, so he really had, 4 good years. But, I mean, 4 good years, that's not going to get you –
No, four out of basically.
Look at what Travis Benjamin did a couple years ago. He had 1,300 receiving yards. He had a bunch of touchdowns. That was 1 year. So that's only 3 seasons away from being a Hall of Famer. That's you gotta kind of compare him to other people. You can't just compare him to himself.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, I don't think he's like that French player. I think he retired a little bit too early. I think he should have went a couple more seasons and see what he did. But even if you look at his touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns, 2, 15, 7, 8, 13, 14, 6, and then 3.
I mean, touchdowns aren't necessarily the best way to look at
well, that's not the only thing I'm looking at. I'm looking at receptions.
I know,
I'm comparing
but
everything.
because you think of Julio over the last couple of years,
what?
He hasn't really had that many touchdowns.
Yeah,
but he could back it up with yards. He has no yards and no touchdowns. So I mean, and barely any receptions. 33, 22, 45, 68, 49. I mean, that.
Well, I mean, when he first started with the Packers, didn't the Packers still have Donald Driver and a bunch of top targets that Rodgers had? So Jordy was probably his number one option for maybe only 4 seasons, maybe.
Yeah, I would say his best season was 68 receptions. And then they got Adams. I would say his best year only 68, 1,300 yards, and 15 touchdowns. That's crazy. That's his most touchdowns and second most yards in his career, and only 68 catches.
For a guy who wasn't always a number one, it was probably not the number one option for half of his playing time.
Yeah,
that's not bad.
Because you look at receivers like Odell Beckham, he's been the number one his whole career.
Yeah. Even if you look at his yards per game, it's really not that good. 23, 25, 36, 79. Then to 62, 82, 95, 78, then down to 32 and 49.
I look at Nelson as an above average receiver, and it's going to depend on who he's surrounded by in the class, as nominations when it comes to the Hall of Fame. That's what's going to determine whether he gets in or not. The people that are nominated around him and eligible.
And he's had only 3 seasons with above 100 targets. So, I mean, I don't know. If you're piecing everything together as a whole, if you look at it stat by stat, I don't think he's, a stellar Hall of Famer. It depends on who he's going to be running with in the year he becomes eligible. But I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Dolphins, they tried trading for Lions quarterback Matthew Stafford last year. I don't know what they'd give up for him. I mean, they don't really have any crazy trade pieces, and I wouldn't give up draft picks for Matt Stafford.
and I wouldn't want that contract anyway of Matt Stafford, because Stafford is getting paid a lot of money. And, I mean, Stafford's not a bad quarterback, but I wouldn't.
He's above average.
He's above average. I don't think he's elite.
He's not top tier.
He's not a top-tier quarterback. So I'm not sure what the Dolphins would have given him to accept that contract.
Yeah, and 27 contract talking about 2017, he signed a 5-year, $135 million contract extension. I don't know why they gave him that much. I mean,
It made him the highest paid quarterback at the time.
Basically been their franchise quarterback, you know. Like if Stafford was, I don't know, maybe like younger than he is now, then maybe it would have made a little bit of sense for the Dolphins to try for that. But Stafford is what? He's like 31 or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're trading for a quarterback who you'll have for what, 4-5 years maybe?
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, Stafford is a good quarterback.
Unless you're like a quarterback from actually being able to compete, then there really wouldn't have been a point.
It's a quarterback that hasn't won a playoff game. It's a quarterback that's gotten the Lions to a couple playoff games. Granted, that 1 year against Dallas, I believe 2014, they should have won if it wasn't for that pass interference that was picked up on Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, Stafford is just not a clutch quarterback for me.
Yeah. He signed a signing bonus of $50 million. He had $60.5 million guaranteed and 3-year cash flow of $87 million. I don't know. I just wouldn't get. I know he's their franchise quarterback, but he's not worth it. Like, even if you look at, I don't know, you go look at other quarterbacks and they've been franchise quarterbacks and they still don't get that much. I don't know. I wouldn't trade for him. He would have to, you know, wow me with his stats to go with that contract, but I don't know. He just doesn't wow it for me. I mean, it'd be good to see him on the Dolphins because they need to find someone to hold them down at quarterback because they're looking for next year to probably draft Tua. They're in their tank season. So, I don't know. I wouldn't trade for him. It'd be a good pickup for the Dolphins because he's a steady quarterback, but he's not worth the contract.
Not worth the contract, not worth what you'd be giving up. That's just
Staying within the NFC North, the NFL season opener will be Packers versus Bears. They are doing this because it's the 100th anniversary of the NFL. This is the oldest rivalry in football. Packers, Bears, they're probably going to be two of the biggest contenders in the NFC. I think the NFC next year is going to be a gauntlet. Next year, I mean, you look at Packers, Bears, Rams, you know, even Falcons. I think the Falcons are going to be a good contender next year. You know, you look at them, you look at, you know, Saints, Rams, Packers, Bears, Falcons, and then you look at the AFC. I think the AFC is going to be pretty weak next year. You look at the Cowboys as well. Maybe the Giants, depending on what they want to do. You know, I know the Giants have been looking at Jadeveon Clowney. You know, Texans their trade talks with Jadeveon Clowney to other teams is starting to heat up. I know the Eagles are involved, the Jets, the Bills, the Giants are a dark horse in the talks as well. So Jadeveon Clowney could be moved as soon as next week. You have Packers and Bears. I've been to Lambeau Field, but this is going to be in Chicago. But Lambeau Field, you know, it'd be cool if it was there, but they're putting it at the Bears place to kick off because, I mean, Bears are better than the Packers.
Yeah.
But I think this should be a good game to kick off the season. It'll be pretty interesting to see.
And that moves the Patriots to Sunday night, that opening week. And there's a few games that you look at that you might see in that matchup. I could honestly see Patriots-Browns week one because they're in Gillette. You know, you got the Browns. You've got the Steelers. I mean, you could see the Steelers. You could see the Cowboys. Honestly, the Cowboys wouldn't surprise me because they love putting the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. I would have said the Giants before the Odell trade. They might have done it. Or Kansas City. I think those are the games that would make sense to see New England in week one. But honestly, if I had to pick one, it would be Cleveland. I think Patriots and Browns week one on Sunday Night Football is a realistic possibility because of the Browns' new talent and just going against the defending Super Bowl champions. I think that would be a perfect game that would bring in the views.
For sure.
Yeah, that'll be interesting to see. Back to the AFC. I think the AFC is going to be pretty weak next year. If you look at it, Steelers are going to fall off. You're really looking at the top contenders being Browns, Colts, Chargers, Patriots are going to fall off, and I think the Chiefs are going to fall off.
The Chiefs are still going to make the playoffs.
Yeah, they'll make the playoffs because you look at the AFC, it's very weak. Browns are going to win their division. I don't think the Ravens are that good. Bengals, we all know they're not good. You look Steelers, they're going to fall off. Patriots, they're probably going to fall off. Not entirely, but they're not going to be what they used to be. I don't think the Chiefs are going to be that good. Still have a very weak defense. They lost 2 starters on the offensive line. Losing Kareem. Now they're not going to have Kareem Hunt for an entire season. Not good. They have Sammy Watkins and Tyreek Hill as their top receivers, and you have Kelsey. But who knows what's going to happen with Hill and all that whole conundrum. But I think they'll maybe get a wild card spot. I think the Chargers are going to win the AFC West. But if you look outside the 3 division winners, I think that are going to go down there, Chargers, Colts, Browns, I really don't see much else, happening. And then the Patriots, but I don't think they're going to be that good in the playoffs.
I mean, I've got the same teams in the playoffs. I just have the Chiefs winning the West again. I just think Mahomes is he'll make the offense. He'll be one of those, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers kind of guys. He's going to make a receiving core just a top receiving core.
And Andy Reid's one of the best offensive-minded coaches in the NFL, so he'll scrape.
The offense is going to be fine.
Scrape something up.
The defense will struggle.
40 points a game.
But I think it'll come down to shootouts for the Chiefs. I think it's going to come up to that. And the Chiefs had plenty of those last year where they got caught in shootouts, and they kept up with all of them. So.
But then if you look at what they did towards the end of the season, they lost every game except for the Ravens, but everyone knows they should have lost that game.
But then again, at the end of the season, it really didn't matter too much.
Yeah, but that was when they lost Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, but they did come back in the playoffs, and they should have made the Super Bowl. So, they showed up when it counts.
Probably would have won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They beat an Colts team, and then they lost a little, by a little to the Patriots. I don't think they're that good without Kareem Hunt, especially they lost more in defense, losing D Ford, losing Justin Houston, Eric Berry's gone. Yeah, they got Tyrann Mathieu, but who do they have running next to him? They lost Steven Nelson as well at cornerback. So they lost 4 of their top guys on defense, and they didn't a job replacing them. Yeah, Matthew's pretty good, but then you lost Berry. I could see if you kept Berry and Matthew on the back end, but
Berry didn't play
Berry didn't play last year, so
but still he's a solid veteran.
But
even though he didn't play last year a lot,
he hasn't played in the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, so you can't judge Eric Berry. The loss of Eric Berry is not going to be that important, I don't think, because they got the number 1 seed without him. So
yeah, but a solid veteran on defense is going to do a lot for them.
But who did they have replace him? Who played for Eric Berry last year?
Probably no one.
And they still made it to the AFC Championship game.
And
so
whoever they had play for Berry is worse than Matthew.
So right now they have Jordan Lucas, Daniel Sorensen, Armani Watts, Tyrann Mathieu, Eric Murray, Dante Johnson. Safety isn't going to cut it. At cornerback, you have Kendall Fuller, who's pretty good, Bashad Breeland. Those are your 2 corners up front. I mean, that's not looking too good. Then your nose tackle, Derek Nottie, coming in, second, third year. Xavier Williams, you look at defensive tackle, Chris Jones, he's good. And then Alex Okafor. Defensive line, I'd put at mid-tier. You look at, offensive line, Austin Ryder, Mitchell Schwartz, Eric Fisher at left tackle, right guard, Cameron Irving. And then I just can't see it. And then behind Travis Kelce, they have no depth at tight end. Receiver, it's Watkins and Hill. Other than that, Sammy Coates. You look at running back, Damian Williams and Carlos Hyde. Yeah, that's a pretty Williams
good. Went off in the playoffs last year.
Yeah. So I think quarterback is just so important these days. Look at Russell Wilson, what he's doing with the Seahawks. He brought that team that should have been 4-12 and brought it to the playoffs. Mahomes is by far the best quarterback in the AFC West. So that's just going to be that much more important. Even if the Chiefs don't win the West, honestly, I see the Chiefs going farther than the Chargers because the Chargers just have not shown up in the big games.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at it, I wouldn't compare that much because we split the games last year, and
that's regular season.
I'm talking about playoffs because the Chargers went into New England and just got embarrassed. I mean, you can't do that.
we only got embarrassed in the first quarter. If you look at the game as a whole, we didn't do that bad. But if you just look at the first quarter, we shit the bed. But we won all the other quarters. We just lost. We lost so bad in the first quarter that we ended up losing the game. But if we played even decent in that first quarter, we would have won the game. We only lost by like less than 15, but it was because
a lot of those points were just garbage time points.
Yeah.
The Pats were up by multiple scores and they just didn't care, so they were just running the clock.
That's like
points are points, though, in my opinion. Whether if you're sitting back, it shows your mantra of how you're playing. But I would take the Chargers over the Chiefs just because of the defense, and also they have more weapons on offense. You look at Melvin Gordon, Hunter Henry, you look at Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. As a unit, I would take the Chargers. But yeah, on the offense, you have three players: Mahomes, Hill, and Kelsey. That's it. You look at the Chargers, they got depth at running back. You only got Justin Jackson, Austin Eckler, and Melvin Gordon. That's three, solid running backs. Look at what Justin Jackson did when Melvin Gordon was out. Even look at Austin Eckler. He was great last year. Then you look at, depth at wide receiver. We have Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Travis Benjamin. And then you look at tight end. We're probably going to get Antonio Gates back, Hunter Henry, and Virgil Green. Virgil Green could be the pass blocking tight end. Then you have Hunter Henry. If he's healthy, he could be a top 5 tight end in the league. So, in the offensive line, yeah, it was shaky a little bit last season. And then you look at Rivers, he was a top 5 quarterback last year. He was a 5th ranked, and then Mahomes was the 1st ranked. So I think there's really not much difference between Mahomes and Rivers. And then you look at the defense, you got Ingram and Bosa, probably the best, pass rushing duo in the league. We'll probably shore up the defensive tackle position with the 28th pick. Then you look at linebacker, Denzel Perryman and Thomas Davis at linebacker for inside. That's better than the Chiefs. I would say we have the better defensive line than the Chiefs. You look at safety, Derwin James, I would take, him. He's a top 5 safety in the league. If you just look at his stats and his grading from last year, he was definitely a top 5 safety. And then you look at, corners, Casey Hayward, Desmond King. I'll take those over whatever the Chiefs have. So we have the better defense. And if you look at, we have a more well-rounded offense. They have a top-heavy. We have a nicer, well-rounded offense. So, when it comes down to it, I'll take the Chargers. But I can't trust the Chiefs, especially with their defense and not in the lack of depth on their offense.
I think it's going to come down to one or two games like it did last year. It could go the other way. Could be the same way as last year. I think both. The second place team in that division is going to get the first wild card, and they're going to play, the 4th best, division winner, which could be Cleveland or the Colts. But I think either way, those two teams will get to the divisional round, whether it's by bye or by playing in the wild card round. But I think if they met in the playoffs right now, I'd just take the Chiefs just because of, they were able to play in the playoffs.
I trust Reed's coaching more than Lynn's coaching too.
Yeah, the coaching's big.
Yeah, but Lynn's
too.
still a great coach. Like he came to a team that went 4-12. He went 9-7 and then 12-4. He's still a great coach.
Andy Reid's been one of the best coaches of the last 20 years.
Yeah, but I still wouldn't count out Anthony Lynn.
No, I'm not saying that he's a bad coach. I'm just saying I trust Reed more than him.
Oh, well, yeah, because he has more experience.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm saying I don't think coaching is enough to tip the scale, I guess you could say, because play on the field is play on the field. Coaches don't go on the field. They don't play. Yeah, they call the plays, but the players act out the plays. It's like a director in a movie. The actors, they do the lines. They act out the stuff. The director just makes everything in place, make sure everything's good. So I think it all comes down to playing. I don't think coaching is going to have – because if your quarterback throws an interception, that's not the coach's fault. If your quarterback throws a touchdown, it's because he saw this receiver instead of that receiver. The coach isn't in his head like, oh, look to the right side, he's open. Because their clock and their helmet turns off after, I think, like 10 seconds in the play clock when it's down to that. So the coach only does so much up until that. It's what you do on the line. It's what the players do when it comes to running routes, blocking, catching. So it really comes down to the players. I don't think coaching, has some stuff to do off the field, a little bit on the field. But I don't think it's going to have too much tip in this. I don't think coaching has that much.
But we've seen with the Pats the fact that they have Bill as their coach.
Mm-hmm.
That's been the difference in so many games. Like coaching is one of those things that you can't quantify it, but the effect that it has on a team, it's it's something else.
Well, someone like Bill will, because he's probably the best head coach of all time in football. But when you have the best head coach of all time in football, that's something different. But when you have like Andy Reid, he's not one of the best of all time. Yeah, he's good, but there's a way bigger difference between Andy Reid and Bill Belichick, because Bill Belichick is the best of all time, and Andy Reid is like, he's a mid-tier head coach. Like, because when you have the tools, it makes you look better as a coach. When you have the best tight end, a top 5 wide receiver, a top 5 quarterback, and he used to have a top 5 running back, that made him look better. But because he had the tools to do it on offense, Anthony Lynn, he doesn't have, Keenan Allen, he's top 10. I wouldn't consider him top 5, but he's definitely in the 6 or 7 range. And he has Mike Williams, who's going into his 3rd year, but he missed a lot of time. So he's turning these players who weren't big name players coming in and turn them into really good players. And he did that with Hunt and Hill, but I think Hill's a one-dimensional player with his speed.
Yeah, I mean, Andy Reid isn't given enough credit. I honestly think he's a top 10, 15 coach of all time, honestly. I think Andy Reid, he made it to, 4 straight NFC championships with the Eagles. Mm-hmm. And he's
just been so good for so long.
Yeah, I mean, he's done so much for the Chiefs, honestly. I mean, D Ford doesn't, jump off sides. They're in the Super Bowl.
And you look at some of the coaches that have been part of his staff who have gone on to be good coaches.
It's just like a Belichick thing, how all the offensive coordinators and more defensive coordinators, because Josh McDaniels can't coach, but defensive coordinators that just move on every year basically to a head coaching job.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think Andy Reid has that same effect on a coaching staff. So I think Andy Reid's a great coach, and nothing should be taken away from him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not taking anything away from him. I'm just saying that even if you look at it, they had the same record last year. The Chiefs lost a lot on defense, and they lost a good amount of players on offense. Chargers, the only person they lost on offense was Tyrell Williams, which that's not really that big of a deal to me. And then if you look at in the defense, Chargers, they lost Darius Philon at tight end, and then no one really on the back end. We cut Jahlil a day, but that's a good for us. So we really didn't lose anyone that big. They lost their 2 biggest pass rushers. They lost, Eric Berry, he's a solid veteran. He helps others on the field. He's basically like another coach. And then they lost Steven Nelson, who's a pretty good, cornerback who signed with the Steelers. So, the Chiefs, I would say they lost a lot and they didn't really gain that much back. And we had the same record as them.
I just think it'll be over that one game. It's going to be within one game. You just got to give the Chiefs a slight edge right now at the moment. But anything can happen with the draft. I think even who drafts better could be huge because they draft around the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Was it 28, 29?
The Chargers have been one of the best drafting teams for years. Chiefs haven't really done that great of a job outside Hunt and Hill. They moved up to get Mahomes. That was a total wild card. But I think outside that, you look at the Chargers, technically Phillip Rivers was drafted, I guess you could say, by them because it was a trade on draft night. So he didn't really play with someone else and then come in. So, he was on the Giants for maybe 15 seconds, not even. So, and then you look at drafted Hunter Henry, drafted Antonio Gates, Allen was drafted, Williams was drafted. Melvin Gordon, Justin Jackson, Eckler, Bosa, Ingram, Desmond King, Derwin James, Perryman, almost the entire team was drafted. You look at, a lot of, the Chiefs players, a lot of them were signed. So I think the Chargers do a very good job at drafting on their team. I think I saw something in the past 7 or 8 years, the Chargers only have one player not there, and that was trying to think, DJ Fluker, and he's on the Seahawks now.
Mm-hmm.
They've had one first rounder that's still not with the team in the past 6 or 7 years, something like that. So we do a great job of drafting as well. So talking about free agency, we're going to talk about the top NFL free agents left. We have about 10-15 for you here. First off, Ndamukong Suh, top. If you really want to talk about top teams for him, he said he wanted to stay out on the West Coast. So, any West Coast team is still in play, Chargers, Seahawks, 49ers, Cardinals, Raiders. Any of those teams could still be in play for him. But I think top team right now would probably be Chargers. We do need the run help. We got a little bit better last year, but we need depth at, nose tackle, defensive tackle. It's all the same thing. But Ndamukong Suh would be a good pickup. The only thing that's going to be tough for the Chargers is cap space. I wouldn't mind cutting Travis Benjamin to pick up Ndamukong Suh because Keenan Allen and Mike Williams is a top 10 duo at wide receiver for the league. So, I wouldn't mind cutting Travis Benjamin if it means we pick up wide receiver in the draft. And then defensive end Ziggy Ansah, top places for him, Giants and Seahawks. I don't know how you guys would feel Ziggy Ansah going to the Giants.
Can't hurt.
Yeah, pass rush.
Yeah,
we have none of that right now.
And we lost Kerry Wynn. It's a bigger loss than people are making it out to be. No one's really talking about it. He went to the Bengals. So Kerry Wynn, losing him was pretty big because he was good off the edge.
He's one of those guys that he's not a big name, doesn't have the best skill set, but when he's on the field, he makes an impact.
Yeah.
I think Ziggy Ansah, that'd be nice for them because they signed Marcus Golden, and then you sign Ziggy Ansah. I think that'll be good because then you don't have to draft an edge rusher at 6 or 17. Then you could spend maybe the 17th pick on a cornerback, and then the 6th pick, offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. So that'll definitely change your whole perspective on the draft. Inside linebacker Zach Brown. You could look at Chargers as a possible option. Giants, maybe Cardinals could look at him. Maybe the Ravens, inside linebacker is something that a lot of teams need. There's not a lot of solid inside linebackers in this league today.
And I don't think he was cut from the Redskins because he wasn't playing well. He had a spat with coaching, right?
Yeah.
So, he can still play at a high level.
Can we just throw the Cardinals in on everybody? Because I feel like the Cardinals are just going all out.
You could put the Cardinals, you could put the Colts, you could put the Browns in there as well.
The Colts have so much cap space.
They do.
They still have $75 million around there?
Yeah, they could possibly I wouldn't rule it out, but I would say it's a long shot for the Texans to trade with the Colts with Jadeveon and Clowney. But hey, you never know. And then you look at cornerback Morris Claiborne.
He had a career year with the Jets last year, but his career hasn't been that good up until last year. So it's not like he was top tier cornerback, but he's still solid. Guess, like a solid two or three option.
Teams to add depth.
Yeah. Giants are still on the lookout for cornerback, and then you look at linebacker Jamie Collins. Patriots could be an option. Go back there.
Yeah, there were talks of the Patriots trading for him last year, but nothing happened, obviously. It would be kind of interesting to see if he does go back, how that would work because he wanted a rather large amount of money from the Pats. The Pats didn't think that he was worth it, so that's why they shipped him off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of options for Jamie Collins, still top tier. Jay Ajayi, him maybe going to the Steelers, that could be a possible option. Maybe to the Colts.
James Conner.
Because he's been talking to the Colts on a possible contract. He was in talks with the Eagles, but obviously they traded for Jordan Howard, which we'll get into a little bit later. Running back C.J. Anderson, he showed up late last year, showed up in the playoffs as well, so I think he'd be a solid option for a lot of teams. I wouldn't be shocked if the Giants picked him up.
I wouldn't mind that, having a bowling ball behind Saquon.
Honestly, we don't need Saquon on every third and short.
And Wayne Gallman's not getting it done either.
Wayne Gallman's a decent running back.
Okay.
I've never been a big fan of him.
I don't think he's a viable two.
He's a much better receiver than he is runner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was the exact opposite with who was that running back we had that never caught a pass? Andre Williams. He never caught a pass in college.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you look at defensive tackle Corey Liujic. He had a 4-year PED suspension last year, and then he had a injury that set him out for the rest of the year. So he really didn't get much look on the field last year, but Seahawks could be a viable option. Maybe back to the Chargers because we need depth at defensive tackle. I wouldn't mind bringing him back. I'd put him in the $2 to $4 million range on a 1 or 2 year deal. I wouldn't give him above that. If you do, I think it's kind of stupid. But I definitely like to see the Chargers bring him back. He was our first round pick a couple years ago, so I still wouldn't rule him out on coming back to the Chargers. Wide receiver Michael Crabtree. I think a good spot for him would honestly be the Cardinals.
Yeah, veteran presence. He's not going to put up the numbers he used to. Just a nice veteran presence that you could rely on. Even, if Kyler Murray goes to the Cardinals, it'd be a good target to, trust
He'll be another good mentor to Kirk too. You know, having Fitz and Crabtree there would
that'd be really good.
Well, Crabtree's still solid. I wouldn't call him like a veteran, but he's still like
he's just a veteran because he's been in the league for some time.
Yeah, he's a veteran, but he's not a veteran like, you know, Larry Fitzgerald or anything like that. But he still has a little bit of youth to him.
Nobody's Fitz. Fitz is something else.
I mean, ever since he left
San Fran,
he hasn't been, you know, that top guy. But I mean,
he played good with the Raiders though.
Yeah, he'd still, like I said, he'd be really good aside Fitz. I mean,
I wouldn't even put in his year last year with the Ravens because he played with Lamar Jackson. How many passes was he getting from him?
Yeah,
you know, nobody in that freaking.
The Ravens don't need wide receivers anymore.
I don't know. I heard Kyler Murray to the Cardinals is a done deal. That's what I heard, but not a done deal like they're signing him.
Well, then they could slide Josh Rosen over to New York.
Yeah, I mean that'd be fine with me.
Yeah, and then offensive guard Quentin Spain. Offensive line are always in need no matter what, whether it be depth or just talent itself.
The linemen really get signed during the spring or preseason because if someone goes down or something, that's when they start getting signed.
Then you look at wide receiver Kelvin Benjamin. Another thing, there's always need for depth at wide receiver. I could think of tons of teams that could use him. Jaguars, maybe Texans. You look at Cardinals again, maybe Seahawks. Maybe Giants, if they're looking for another veteran there, because they do have a lot of young guys in their receiving core. Maybe Patriots pick up Kelvin Benjamin. Maybe goes back to the Bills. Who knows?
The Panthers.
Yeah, maybe goes back to the Panthers. Maybe goes to the Jets. Who knows? But he's a player that can kind of go anywhere. I'm surprised this next person's still on the board. Running back TJ Yeldon. You know, many teams that could use him. Who do you think? I could name like 8 teams that could use TJ Yeldon right now.
The Panthers could use him behind McCaffrey.
I think McCaffrey, I don't think Yeldon would work good because they need like a power back behind McCaffrey because McCaffrey's like a smaller back in my opinion.
Maybe the Eagles, they have him just go with Howard.
That would be a very, very solid duo.
Yeah, you get Howard and Yeldon. Those are two different.
Maybe the Giants, you know.
Maybe, you know.
Just take the load off of Saquon. He's like a worse version of Saquon in a
because
way.
Yeldon is like, I think he's like in between a 1 and a 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's not a true 2. Obviously, he played behind Leonard Fournette. That made him a 2. Mm-hmm. But he could be a 1 on some teams.
Yeah.
So he would be, I think I'd trust him more than Wayne Gallman behind Saquon.
It'll be interesting to see where he ends up. Defensive lineman Muhammad Wilkerson, another player I could see going to the Chargers. We just need defensive tackle depth. We have, Mebane, Justin Jones right now. I think if we add, Wilkerson or Sue, I think that'll be, definitely good for us, but I wouldn't be opposed to that, or even Corey Liuget. Safety Glover Quinn, he was cut by the Lions. It'll be interesting to see where he goes. I don't know. I don't see many teams going after Glover Quinn. His production has gone kind of down. He's a little bit older now. Not too old, but he still has a little bit of youth in him. But he's not what he used to be when he first came in with the Lions.
Maybe someone like the Chiefs look at him if they get him for the right price. The Colts could give him a look.
I would say the Colts, to be honest. And you can also look at the Steelers. These are the 2019 retirements so far. It just popped up on my phone. Rob Gronkowski, Julius Peppers, Jordy Nelson, Kyle Williams, Halati Nagata, Max Unger, Jeremy Maclin, Ben Watson, Brian Arakpo, Ryan Khalil, Ultron Werner, Matt Slauson, John Kuhn, Phil Taylor, and Malcolm Mitchell. That's a lot of players retiring for just 2019. So Glover Quinn, I don't know, a couple teams. And then you have safety Eric Berry. A couple teams I could look for him. The Cowboys might be a viable option, but they just signed George Loca, whatever it may be. It'll be interesting to see what happens with Eric Berry. Obviously still a solid veteran. He could still produce when healthy. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. As well, the updated WrestleMania 35 card, if you hold with me real quick, I'll be at WrestleMania on next week coming up. Whoa, what is going on? What happened to that? I don't even know where that went. That just kind of disappeared off my screen. No. Hold with us. We're going to go bottom to top, ladies and gentlemen. We're not giving away the main event first. All right, bingo bango. So for the rumored matches right now that aren't confirmed, the Women's Battle Royal, which hasn't been confirmed yet, but WWE is thinking about it. SmackDown Tag Team Championship, the rumored match is Usos versus Hardy Boys versus Nakamura and Rusev versus The Bar. It'll be interesting to see what happens there. Confirmed so far is Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal. Braun Strowman is favored to win that match. Cruiserweight Championship match, Buddy Murphy versus Tony Nese. Buddy Murphy's right now scheduled to retain. If anybody knows, you can follow me. I'm like a WWE insider, I guess you could say. I do get a lot of WWE news that I do tweet out, but I sometimes we follow it here. There's news, we'll put it out, but we're not like crazy about it. We'll live tweet like pay-per-views and stuff like that, but we'll be at WrestleMania though. Kurt Angle versus Baron Corbin. This is Kurt Angle's farewell match. I think it's dumb to have Baron Corbin face him in his very last match in the WWE. I think it should be John Cena, but there's been rumors of them still, open to switching it. We'll see what happens. The Miz versus Shane McMahon in a Falls Count Anywhere match. They don't usually do Falls Count Anywhere matches at WrestleMania, so this will be interesting to see how they do the finish of this match. It'll definitely be a fun one to see. Women's Tag Team Championship match, Sasha Banks and Bayley versus Beth Phoenix and Natalya versus Nia Jax and Tamina versus the Iconics. Sasha and Bayley are scheduled to win that match. United States Championship, Samoa Joe versus Rey Mysterio. Samoa Joe is scheduled to win that match. Intercontinental Championship match, Bobby Lashley versus Finn Balor. Finn Balor is scheduled to win that match, and he is supposed to be coming out as the Demon. Triple H versus Batista, no holds barred match. Triple H's career is on the line, so this has to make you think that Triple H is obviously going to win because he definitely does want to wrestle more in the future. AJ Styles versus Randy Orton, two veterans that are just going to go at it. I think they're definitely going to put on a show. Roman Reigns versus Drew McIntyre. I think my booking would be they should make this number one contenders match for the Universal Championship, but they're probably not, but that's just my booking. Right now, Roman Reigns is scheduled to win, obviously the favorite. WWE Championship match, Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston. Kofi Kingston is scheduled to win that match at WrestleMania. Universal Championship match, Brock Lesnar versus Seth Rollins. I was told that Lesnar is most likely retaining, but as we all know with WWE, anything can happen. If you don't know this by now, everything is scheduled for that.
Oh, yeah, that was Braves fan.
Braves fan. What did Braves fan say?
He said, "What up? What is up, fellas? There was real baseball on TV yesterday. It's baseball season."
Yeah, finally baseball season. So, as we know, WWE, they like to change things a lot. We'll see what happens, but these are the scheduled winners of now. I know people don't like hearing, the spoilers. Too bad if I gave them to you. Raw Women's Championship, Ronda Rousey versus Becky Lynch versus Charlotte Flair. We saw Charlotte Flair win the title at Mohegan Sun Arena last Tuesday. Right now, Becky is scheduled to win the Raw Women's Championship in the main event of WrestleMania. Definitely going to be a pretty good show. I don't think the build is as good as the past couple years, but I think this card is not as good as last year's or the year before. Definitely be interesting to see, what happens there. I'm going to pass this next one over to Dom. The 2020 NASCAR schedule changes. You could take us away with that one.
All right. So first big change, obviously, ISM Raceway hosting the championship race is the first time it's going to host the season finale since 2001. It's been Homestead. Homestead moves up to the sixth race of the season next year. And then Daytona will host the regular season finale instead of being on July 4th weekend, which is replaced by Indianapolis. They both basically flip spots for next season. Then you have Pocono will host a doubleheader. So you're going to get a cup race on Saturday and a cup race on Sunday. I'm going to really try to go to that. Bristol Night Race will become a playoff cutoff, so it's going to move back a couple weeks, but it will be the first round elimination race where we'll see 4 drivers lose their chance for a championship. Indianapolis, like I said, it'll move to July 4th weekend, which concerns some fans because of the heat. It's always been a big problem with the heat there. And in Martinsville, will move under the lights on Mother's Day weekend. It'll be the Saturday night before Mother's Day, May 9th next year. Definitely one NASCAR fans have always been looking for since Martinsville added lights. And this is going to be probably one of the most anticipated races in NASCAR history. And then Darlington moves to the opener of the NASCAR playoffs. because there will be a 2-week break in the summer for the Olympics to allow NBC to cover all the races or all the Olympic events and then not miss any of the racing action. So that's all I got for the 2020 NASCAR schedule changes.
All right, so no one sent in the goddamn halftime viewer mail, so who cares about that? We're going to go into the rundown now. Red Sox signed starting pitcher Chris Sale to a 5-year, $150 million contract extension. Pretty decent deal for him. Astros signed starting pitcher Justin Verlander to a 2-year, $66 million contract extension. The Mets signed starting pitcher Jacob deGrom to a 5-year, $138 million contract extension. Athletics acquired DH first baseman Kendrys Morales from the Blue Jays in exchange for Jesus Lopez. He's a third baseman and cash. Trailblazers center Yusuf Nurkic will miss the rest of the season with a broken leg after he snapped it earlier this week against the Nets in overtime. Raptors are growing more and more confident that they will re-sign forward Kawhi Leonard this offseason. Lakers guard Josh Hart will miss the rest of the season with knee surgery for a torn patellar tendon. The Bulls are shutting down forward Lauri Markkanen for the rest of the season. Conor McGregor announced his retirement from the MMA earlier this week, but we don't know how definite that is because he has said before that he's retiring, but then he didn't. So I'm going to pass this next little bit over to Dom again.
Okay, so we saw Brad Keselowski. He won the STP 500 at Martinsville this past Sunday. Greg Biffle will race for Kyle Busch Motorsports in the 51 truck at Texas in June, his first NASCAR start since 2016. Then we saw Paul Casey win the Valspar Open last week at 8 under. And then you have the Miami Open semifinals for the men's will be Felix Auger-Aliassime versus John Isner. Currently, they're playing right now. Isner leads one set at 7-6 and they're 3-2 on serve in the second. And they will take on the winner of Denis Shapovalov and Roger Federer. Then we'll see the women's final will be Ash Barty and Karolina Pliskova. And the Lightning signed head coach John Cooper to a multi-year extension.
All right, now we're going to go pass it back to me. The Raiders signed running back Isaiah Crowell to a 1-year, $2.5 million contract. The Raiders, they were in talks with the Bears about Jordan Howard. The Bears were asking for a third-rounder for Jordan Howard. Interesting to see that, the Raiders and the Eagles were the top contenders for him, but they couldn't get anything. Things fell off. Raiders ended up signing Isaiah Crowell, so they fell out of it. So they just ended up taking the Eagles deal for a 2026 round pick that could end up being a 5th-round pick for Jordan Howard. I think the Eagles, that's definitely going to help, their backfield. I think the Eagles are going to be pretty solid for next year. I think they just need a little bit more help on the defense since they lost a couple playmakers via free agency, but I think their defensive line is still pretty solid. Linebackers good for them. I think they just need a little bit of help in the secondary, and that team is good. I think it's going to be an interesting race between the Cowboys, Giants. I really think it could be up for grabs next year, but I think my pick right now for the NFC East, is the Cowboys for right now. If the Giants, say they do sign Ansah, at 6 they pick Jonah Williams, and then at 17 they pick the top cornerback available. Who knows? They could maybe end up winning that division, but we'll see what happens. Patriots defensive coordinator Greg Schiano, whatever it may be, stepped down from his position after 7 weeks. Talk about a brief stay. The Cowboys acquired defensive end Robert Quinn from the Dolphins for a 2026 round pick. The Bills, they released running back Chris Ivory, a good veteran running back who could still add to some teams. The Jets are open to trading the 3rd overall pick, depending on what they want to do with it. Could be, maybe Bengals, maybe Bills, maybe they trade up for something they like. The Bengals, they signed defensive end Kerry Wynn to a 1-year contract. Texans signed offensive tackle Matt Khalil to a 1-year contract. The Raiders signed quarterback Landry Jones and Mike Glennon. Interesting, they signed 2 quarterbacks. The Raiders signed inside linebacker Brandon Marshall to a 1-year, $4.1 million contract. That 0.1 is going to put them over the cap space. Buccaneers signed quarterback Blaine Gabbert. The Browns have talked to safeties Trey Boston and Eric Berry. The Cowboys signed, as we said before, George Ayoka, whatever it may be. loco crazy. The AAF is considering folding because they are not getting any help from the NFLPA, which is the NFL Players Association. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with them. I mean, obviously, they haven't really had too much run with their company right now, so it'll be weird and interesting to see what happens with that if they do fold. Obviously, what did he say? Overpaid for Marshall.
Yeah, I mean, it depends how you look at it.
$4 million is pretty good for him. I don't think that's too much where it's going to break the bank, but Brandon Marshall for $4.1 million.
On a 1 year deal, that's not bad.
That's solid. He's a veteran and he could still produce. $4.1 million is nothing. Even if the Chargers paid him that, I'd be fine with that. But trying to think, we'll be back next week, I believe. What's today's date? Oh no, wait. Wow, next week is already WrestleMania weekend. We will. Do you think we can get it in next week? I have NXT Takeover.
We could try a different time if it all winds up.
We could probably start a little bit earlier. We might be having an early start time next week because I have NXT Takeover next Friday, so it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Next Friday, you know what? I'll just say right now we'll be going on. We'll be at a little bit earlier start time though, but we will be back next week. Maybe we'll be doing a daily recap tomorrow. I've been busy all this week a lot, so I haven't been putting out the daily recaps as much this week, but we'll be trying to roll them out more next week. But that's it for today. Make sure you like, subscribe, retweet, whatever it may be. Open Table Sports. That's all it is. This has been episode 14 of the Open Table Sports Podcast. Thank you for listening. I'm so pale. Oh.